I'm doing really well. Good to be with you.
So your thoughts on what's going on here with the paradigm shift, the attempt to essentially reset the Great Reset. There's a lot of nervous people. I think there's justifiable reasons to be nervous. If you worked your whole life to retire and you've got an imminent retirement and you were planning on maybe passing on some of that to your kids, the market uncertainty, the timing could not be worse for you. On the other hand, if you're the younger generations and you're thinking, we gave all this money to all these global interests and wars and everything else for decades, and what did I get at? So I can now buy, and also I could just go buy a 65-inch 4K TV at Walmart for $400. That was it. Mm-hmm. All the rot gut, all the hollowing out of our cities, all of that was just so I could get a big screen TV for cheaper at Walmart. That's not enough of a bargain in return, right? And so there's generational differences to this. There's ideological differences to this. And there's no guarantee of how our enemies and rivals in the global marketplace are going to ultimately respond to this as well. So just kind of what are your thoughts? I laid out mine before you came on, but what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think people need to take a look at it for what it is. You have smart people, really smart people, both in finances, politics, whatever it might be, who are on both sides of this issue. They're taking very visible different sides here. And I think the reason they are is that nobody really knows what's going to happen. But I think what President Trump saw, as a matter of fact, when the the former vice president, Mike Pence, was in these offices, he talked to our team and to our board about what a financial reality that this country has to face, and that we need to take on entitlements. If you're not going to take on entitlements, where are you going to get it? And so when you take a look at Trump and his administration, he's going, listen, this country has right now a 1.9 trillion with a T, trade deficit. So we need to address this issue. And the only way to address the issue is take away the disparity with trade. And so I've often said, Steve, when I ran for governor and taught in economics as well, free trade is not fair trade. And so there needs to be a reciprocal nature to the trade, and that's what Trump is reasserting now. Reasserting, and his belief is you need America more than we need you. And if we need America more than we need you, guess who's got the leverage? America does. So I'm going to start using these tariffs as a means to bring you to the negotiating table to lower the tariffs on our goods so we can expand our markets, as well as to make it more and more at home versus having to import your products. And so what you're seeing with this is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He's in D.C. today. It's an impromptu visit. I believe Trump will have a press conference with him later this afternoon. And I think Netanyahu is going to announce that with Israel, it's going to be 0% tariff on America-made products. What Trump can then do is highlight that that's a win. If Trump is successful by restating this being Liberation Day, he will look brilliant. And it will be the leadership that you needed for this country. And I believe that he's in now for the second term versus the first term. He knew this the first term as well. But now the second term, and he doesn't have to worry about re-election. And so I got to believe he really, really believes this, to reset this if you're still going to want to have the government, that the government continues to put forward. But he's doing the DOGE effort on one side, the tariff efforts on the other side.
So this morning, NBC News reported that there is a handful of U.S. senators who have signed on to sponsor a bill limiting the president's tariff power. Now, of course, he would just veto this, and
Sure.
there's nowhere close to the votes probably to override it, okay, in both houses, all right? But one of the co-sponsors, according to NBC News, is Senator Grassley.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
This is Senator Grassley. This is not a new issue for Senator Grassley, first of all, because typically, if you take a look at a state like Iowa, a highly agricultural state, when you get into a trade war, it's your farmers that are going to take the hit. So he's been a big proponent initially about having Congress limit anybody's ability to impose tariffs, that they get a chance to take a look at that first. Right now, there's not near enough co-sponsors to say you're going to get the needed votes in order to do that. But if this doesn't play out quickly, so what Trump, in essence, Steve, I believe, he is relying on his negotiating skills. He's the chief negotiator. He understands art of the deal. If he gets wins, this thing's going to turn around fairly quick. People are going to go, you know what, this is probably good for the country, and here you see the market rebound. If he doesn't get those wins, and all of a sudden you start getting countries like China and Japan and others digging in and saying, we're going to have this huge tariff deal and we're going to set in on the trade war. Now you're going to get a guy like Ted Cruz who's saying on his podcast, tariffs are, in essence, a tax on the American people. You're increasing the taxes because somebody's got to pay for the increase of goods. And if that happens, the political reality is going to be we're going to have a bloodbath in 2026. So if this thing doesn't come around quickly with Trump having some wins, I think now you could see more and more people in the Senate and the Congress buy into what Grassley is trying to promote.
So I think your analysis is correct, but I think here's the thing, and I would say this to Senator Cruz, who I used to work for, I adore.
Yep.
I agree tariffs are a tax if you have an actual free market. I agree that they are. Okay. And really, it was until probably about 5-6 years ago. That's what I thought we had. Mm-hmm. All right. And it's pretty clear we don't. Okay. And so how do you have a sustainable free market when the countries you're primarily doing business with, like China, have command economies with glorified slave labor?
Yep.
And they can pay their labor anything they want. Okay, and limit their behavior in any ways they choose to, in order to then those goods get shipped here so that they're cheap for us to buy. Okay, how's that a free market?
So real quick, Steve, to that point, I don't know how many of your audience listeners and viewers are motorcycle riders, but there are companies out there called Kawasaki, Yamaha, Harley Davidson, Indian. Those are motorcycle brands. Guarantee if you go to Japan or if you go to the Asian continent, you are not going to see a lot of Harley Davidsons or Indians over there. Why? Because they're made in America. But you're going to see a lot of Yamahas and Kawasaki's here in this country. That's when you're saying, how is this a free trade? Well, it's free trade, but it's not necessarily fair trade. And that's what Trump is trying to get to. So he's trying to do a reset, which, frankly, I applaud his bold and courageous spirit because he's looking after America's best interests so that we can be, in his words, make America wealthy again. I
agree with that, but I think we actually can't make this about a quick turnaround. I think we have to go all the way to the mattresses because back to my previous point, the many of the economies in India, which produces a ton of goods, has one of the largest consumer classes, a caste system. It's literally religiously embedded into the society that you can have a permanent underclass of people, okay? China has done so as a state, a permanent underclass of people or worker class, okay? So if those are countries where the scales aren't equally balanced here, and therefore they can hold out here and see if the president is serious by imposing harsh realities upon their people that they don't own 300 or 400 million guns like our people do. They don't have the kind of liberty our people do. They're not as drunk on comfort as our people are. Sure. All various combinations of factors. All right. If I was in Peking or Beijing, or if I was in New Delhi, that's what I'd be saying. I'd do just hunker down. All right. He's got political realities. He's got a congressional midterm next year. Question. He could lose 50 House seats, and he's a lame duck. He'll be 80 years old, termed out. We just hunker down. We can put our people down. We can roll more tanks through Tiananmen Square if we want to. Okay. And I think this is actually where you have to be fully invested in this, to the point that Reagan was with tax cuts, and he's looking at a recession of 81 and a recession of 82, and he got destroyed in the 82 midterm elections. But he understood, I can't be a little bit pregnant. I'm going to go down this road, I got to finish the task. And I think that's actually where Trump is at. Because if I were advising these other nations, I'd be sitting there saying, you can hold out on him politically. See if he gets weakened by this. He's got senators in his own political party out there trying to limit his power the morning after. He's got prominent commentators on his own team out there saying, this is why we got to let Iran get away with literal murder because we can't afford a war. He's got all kinds of pressures right now. We can wait him out. We can put our people through 3, 4, 5 Stalingrad winters if we have to, because we'll just run them over. All right, and we'll see if they've really got the stomach to go through with this.
So what you just iterated was the 3 Ps. One is the person. The person is Donald Trump. Nobody else has got the courage or the boldness to do what he's doing right now. And I believe he has got the steadfast ability to say, I'm going to see this thing through. I know I only have one term, but I'm going to see this thing through because this is in the best interest of our country. So I think you have Trump there. Politically, I think you hit it. Free trade isn't fair trade. There needs to be a reciprocal nature of this if we're going to have the best interest of our country in. The politics is where everybody's concerned about. And their politics is because our country, more than any other country, has attention deficit disorder. Take a look what just happened in Wisconsin last week, Tuesday night, a state that Trump won in impressive fashion, and they all of a sudden they elect a liberal judge, everything that Trump's against, by 10 points. We have attention deficit.
Well, then turning around and voting for voter ID by an even wider margin than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Steve, what it is, they have attention deficit disorder. The other thing about Americans is when you talk about the lap of luxury, can I have my big screen TV? Can I have all these goods I want? When you hit us economically, and also my 401k drops, and also the cost of everything's going up, they're going to punish you at the ballot box. And so you're right, all these foreign countries may be looking like, I wonder if America's got we think Trump does, but does America have the will to do it? So what that behooves people like you, people like President Trump and his administration, even people like me at the Family Leader, educate about what is in the best. You need to get in front of the narrative train as well about why this is in the best interest. He did it when he addressed the joint Congress when he said, listen, this could be a bumpy ride. The reason he's saying it could be a bumpy ride, he knows things initially are going to probably not going to work out the way you want it. But if he can start showing some really good wins with some countries, and the countries believe he knows it, this will turn out really good for him. But it's too early to assess right now.
Aaron, you've been quiet so far. What are your thoughts on what you've heard from me and then from me and Bob?
Well, I think a lot of people need to take deep breaths, just deep breaths right now. I mean, because if you, even from the right, even from Trump supporters, certain Trump supporters over the weekend, it was as if the sky was falling. I mean, this was COVID level hysteria on Friday. It was absolutely nuts. So I think a lot of people need to take a very deep breath. And here's why. And this is either an indictment of the administration or it's just the plan working out. People don't truly know how these tariffs, they don't know for certainty how they are being used. Is it a tool to isolate China? Is it a leverage point just to get better trade deals? Is it an effort to reshore critical industry all back into the United States to some degree? That can't happen overnight. But is it a combination of all of these efforts? We don't know for certainty. Or is it just a long-term plan to raise revenue for the United States? We don't know for certainty what the plan is here. But I think what's driving a lot of the hysteria is that people think that they know for certain what is the play here, and it's driving them nuts. So we need to let this play out a little bit longer, because if it is a tool to to just produce revenue long term and in a permanent fashion, I don't think a coexistence of high tariffs along with an income tax, I don't see how that's sustainable for 90% of people in this country. If it's a leverage point just to isolate China, which I am increasingly becoming convinced of on some level, to basically put together a coalition to hit back at China's unfair practices for the last generation, I think we need to let that play out. But we don't know for certain, and I think it's because this is a grand negotiation here. If you're sitting at the negotiating table, you're not going to telegraph to the general public what your desired outcome is. And I don't even know if the administration knows what their desired outcome is. They're putting leverage on the table, and they're seeing what they can get. So I think people just need to take a deep breath in, deep breath out. I do believe you are right to be concerned, not hysterical, but concerned. If you're close to retirement, I think you have a right to be concerned about what's happening here. But I don't think it does any good. I mean, we just lived through this 5 years ago. Just panic and mass hysteria, I don't think does anybody any good.
Bob, I'll give you the last word.
I think Aaron's right. However, we have proven ourselves not to be a country that's really good at deep breaths. We go moment to moment and we do quick analysis and quick assumptions. I do think what Trump is, though, he sees a $1.9 trillion trade deficit as being unsustainable, and I'd say he's correct on that. Implementing DOGE by saying we're too addicted to government, I believe he's correct on that. However, Steve, I think what you had in your post, is this really about a spiritual revival? Because we have handed off all of our duties and responsibilities to the government.
Yes.
It used to be when you had a breakdown in the family, you went to the extended family. You went to grandpa and grandma, aunt and uncle. And if the extended family wasn't there, you went to the church. If the church wasn't there, you went to your local community. But the last place you went was to government. And today, that's the first place we're going is to government. And that needs as much of a reset as a trade imbalance needs a reset.
And if I may, because I'd like to hear what you think about it.
We've got 40 seconds.
Breaking down the family happened because we shipped a lot of our jobs overseas. That's why this whole tariff thing is a tax on the people. Well, 150 countries have tariffs on us. Yeah. How could they afford them? They got our manufacturing jobs.
That is part of it, Todd, as well. But the other reason the breakdown of the families became all about me. It came about the big guy in family, about this is what I want, this is what I deserve, and we have a breakdown of family. The root cause is we've handed way too much over to government that should have stayed within the church.